What's up, everybody on YouTube? It's your boy, hashtag CMooney, making this another discussion for a certain movie I went to go see in theaters, in public, the latest new genre version from of modern day, from reprint from the 1996, from the 2016 version of Tom Cruise to now the Lee Cronin version of The Mummy. And this is a more parodic take, as in going more true to the sense of what a mummy is, rather than, oh, it's a specific person of a 3,000-year-old prince of Egypt or stuff. This is more the dilute of how it is with being a mummy, but also with horror. True horror flick, actually I could say that with confidence, being an actual true horror of a mummy film. With also kind of a bit of unoriginal, but still true classic at the same time, gut wrenching, because I just have to make this out for what I honestly feel. From the first few minutes I'm watching in the movie in the theater room with everybody, introduced to this family, this certain particular group in Egypt, who just look like a regular kumbaya, but then we're introduced to basically what I can describe the most evilest woman on the planet, who is just so deluded or hell-bent onto the, tradition of her people, taking what was supposed to be like the Amon idea of keeping no matter what the evil remain contained from like Lord D. Warner in the worst possible way, for establishing that they keep in their house the most evil thing alive. Literally, worst of all, still being so, underneath their house. That they not only don't comfort their kids about it, when they see like a bleeding bird, their pet bird bleeding in the cage, what does the mama do? She cruts it right in front of her kids, saying they take lesson from these children. And then they go inspect the tomb underneath their house to see if it's time or not, to see if the vessel is still holding up for which God is just cringing for what is about to happen. I just, my ads. I mean, giving some nostalgia, probably, and I have to say, I'm a big horror fan, and there are a few things that ever crawl under my skin. Only a few exceptions. And this is so far the latest new one to really make me go, oh God, couldn't constantly watching my eyes out afterwards. For after, basically, good God help us all. After basically confirming, well, oh shit, it's time apparently in their Egyptian occult sense. They are the unlikeliest family of a young person who, which I can respect and like his name, named Charlie Cannon. Probably get into somewhere if you know who, but him as being a lovely family of his wife, who's a nurse, his son, who's a rebel, pretty much a little kid, but then who is the main antagonist on this, and unfortunately the worst victim in this entire film, their little daughter named Katie. And the fate that befall this girl, there's just nothing I can just say. The worst way I can describe it is like, those certain websites on children that never to walk, care to go across. It was that kind of thing in this film. It's a very horror disgust, but not to the point where, everybody had to walk out, because obviously why would people still go to see it? Why would they still go to see it? So, this pretty much takes off with the father bringing his family to Egypt for part of his job and interview and all that, then moving back to New York soon. It was just unfortunate timing that this was the also time where the cult-like leader, who's a woman, who's the mother, who's also a magician, needs to find another person to contain the ancient Egyptian demon Nasmaranian into another living being in order to keep it contained, and more so around that lines, which probably this title of this movie implies, could mean no downright goring for when it happens to be the worst possible person, or no, specifically target, because he had her daughter. She used her daughter's friend she was hanging with at the time, which didn't know, and to the reason made her Katie to not tell their make Katie not tell their parents about her mysterious person named Layla. Later, she never could after a little snip snip, but unfortunately, she, Katie, being after getting mad after her father and brother, a few things, just playing little tea outside with her little doll. This woman says hi, Katie, and she thinking first maybe it's her friend, but she asks, "Where's Layla?" And then she says, "Layla's mother," and then knowing she had some instincts, and I'm not gonna blame. No kid can help but take a little bit of chance on people. That is the sad thing about childhood. They want to embrace the unknown, and sometimes it can end very, very badly. This sadistic woman lures this child with sweets, basically like the witch in the gingerbread house, saying, "For a magic trick," and then doing, "Please forgive me, Katie, for what I have to do next." Takes, puts, comes out from an apple she gives to her. A little beetle crawls up the girl's mouth, paralyzes her so she can't scream out for help. "For Daddy, please come for me." And then the woman takes her, brings her back to her house to perform the ritual on this poor little girl, to have this demon's essence go into her mouth, then mummify that little girl, and to be stuck in a sarcophagus for 8 years. 8 years. Until they have to move it out of the region because of potential flooding. And then, just not surprise to anyone, the plane crashes. And then later, we receive from the family who, after going to the police, then being questioned by the Egyptian authorities, that I like to believe that the family never gave up. They tried to find Katie and all that, but he just also knew that he couldn't keep their head in the dirt. That's not how any person should live, and I can understand. I've gone through certain grievances in my life to understand what that feel. Nobody take it from me, thank God. But they get possibly the best news anybody could hear after 8 freaking years. They hear that they found their daughter. Their daughter is alive somehow after 8 years. But what comes back is only a shame of the poor, sweet, innocent girl that was all those 8 years ago in Cairo. She literally couldn't look more like from the Evil Dead, where her skin is all wax and framed like she was a moment ago truly mummified. And then now she's moving her mouth, she literally looked like she went past embalming stage. Her fingernails so good. And then when the doctor just basically says, all Katie needs right now is love and attention. Well, understandable that they had been one of the managers that the greatest thing in the world is to be with their family. The girl needs proper medical attention, as anybody would have thought. But again, there would be no medical situation could have helped with what's next. So, anywho, somehow, despite the logic that even though the first plane crash caused it to fall out of the sky, they managed to take the plane back again to get back into the state of America, bring their daughter back to their house, which all they can do right now is hopefully give thinking there will be time to adjust and all. The poor grandma, though, baking so many cakes to make it sure that she knows she was missed and loved in all the world. But the demon inside her is not having none of that. And so she lunges at the grandma after chanting some prayers. You know, the kind of wrong prayers that would be necessary for later. But enough to irritate, the Nazmaranian and just give grandma a good old broken nose, unfortunately. Then later to have her in bed a few times, then have her go through the walls, eating basically dead scorpions, which apparently could be native to America a lot, and then having her trying to trim her nails and all. Ironic because I've gone through my fair pedicures, and what I saw was basically done horribly well with the nail. The mom just wants to give her daughter the proper trim looking good. She pulls too hard on her big toenail, and instead of taking just the toenail, it takes half of her leg's flesh off, which the girl later uses a pitchfork, to stab at the end cheek. Oh God! And later it's revealed that that piece of flesh skin was one of the or part of the wrappings that they wrapped her in, that fused into her skin. That later had that was written in it the sigils to keep the Nosferatu inside her body, or at least not use his full power. But slowly, as the story progressed, those layers around Katie's body begins to peel away as and showing more and more of the Nosferatu's true power and what it was doing. Later to finally not only put good old grandma in the coffin, but have basically choke. Literally, you never thought possible for someone to choke on a rosary until you see someone being levitated up in the air within choking, and it's your little grandma, your little granddaughter telling you, "Don't worry, grandma. It's fun to be dead." Then throw you out the freaking window, then land on what is your grandson-in-law and son-in-law car and be bleeding out. And at the same time, this Nosferatu took a page out of what was Asmodeus from the Post Exorcist, possessing more than one person. So I possessed Ken, and then the little sister and the little brother, and then basically have wolves basically luring coyotes to the grandma to eat her freaking intestines on the sidewalk. And then, after all that, instead of just like send her to Seattle because they don't want to steal, they keep her locked in her room while the father is not an idiot. He wants to know what happened to his daughter. He wants to know so he can help her and all that. And despite finding the answer, it happens too painfully soon. We already know. We already know possibility what happened to her. But for the rest of everyone, they have to slowly learn in order to piece it together, which is just frustrating at the same time, but understandable logic. Because you don't get that for a person. I guess that's much what God feels like when you can't intervene. Because God damn, does it become more of a so once they discover not only more what's going on, but girl, Katie's still somewhere in there. Gives them a little hint of what happened and who took her. And they correspond with the detective in Cairo, who searches the name and finds that evil, wicked woman on the and shoots her, and we at the same time some of us are feeling, no, shooting is too damn good for her. This woman needs to suffer. This woman needs to feel what it is to have to go through that to any person of a living child to do. And to find out later what she did to her own daughter, cutting her freaking tongue out so she couldn't tell the truth of what happened to Katie. Good God. Only to reveal that all in the most sadistic thing I could have ever seen. To basically the worst thing anybody could ever do. I mean, to record that shit, to record what they're doing to Sacramento or anything, and to reveal that they could have used anybody. They could have used the most worst person imaginable to put that in that freaking sarcophagus to be bathed salt in order to keep it in. But they think that a child lasts innocence lasts longer. Do you know how sick that is to put to say that in the first place? No matter what your moral high, get the freak out of here. You are not moral at all by even considering that. And anywho, to finally have that all wrapping up with the detective going to the family's home to show them not only the tape, but to explain everything that's been going on, but at the same time, keeping dear old Katie locked in her room and hopefully to avoid that. And I'm just gonna say there are some things, like I said, should never even be seen on the on certain websites. That you question again, how far can they do this in movies? God damn. But to the point, after finally knowing what happened to Katie and find the answer to help their daughter, after a tense fight when finally Nussmer has removed all the seals on Katie's body, finally going full on with like small version of what the mummy did with the sand in 2012 or 16. I don't really know a date, but basically a small sandstorm in their house, basically people levitating, people bringing the dead grandma to life after, and then the detective having the scorpion go down her throat, and the scorpion's tail go right through her throat, stinging her. She throws it out, and somehow is still able to breathe and able to say the words to have to transfer Nosferatu demon from Katie to her father, Charlie, in order as a great sacrifice in order to make sure that her daughter doesn't suffer anymore because he wasn't there to save her, but he will save her now. And it was that truly touching. They had to keep him now strapped in the same coffin with, I think, the grandma too, and good God. Just good God. But to finally having true justice out of all that, we find out that that evil, worst level of worse than close to the devil himself woman was not only still alive and kept alive, but the parents also get to have a sense of revenge for what they did to their little girl by drugging her, making sure she doesn't move. Wow. Bringing all the way a third time with a plane without crashing back to Cairo, bringing the father in a wheelchair, showed up to that woman, and for the detective to say the chant so the demon could be trapped in her sorry ass, and then to her to suffer for eternity in a coffin for however long until she dies to be transferred next. And all I could say from that is that was like a horrific roller coasters of pure nightmare fuel at the same time. Oh, just downright grotesque. Anything more grotesque. I mean, it's gross viewing, alright, and owning that truly gross. I mean, but I just have to get that out there for what my honors should take. And honestly, there should be some little red tape, I'm not a lot, but some moral ground for what they do with little kids in horror movies, because this to me went fell a bit too far, way too far. Well, that's it for this latest discussion of my personal review and opinion, and where it stands. I give it a solid 6 out of 10, almost half, but I can't say a pure 7 out of 10 for decency, but it's close enough to give it that remarkable review. And I would say it is something worth watching. At the same time, you should really question what you see as the horror films. I'm #CMooney. I'll see you later. Peace.